Well, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday. It's a beautiful morning out this morning. Um, Welcome to this month's webinar. We're going to be talking about delegating with ease and learning how to be better delegators. As always, I'm grateful for anyone who joins me on my webinars. Hopefully, you get little snippets that are helpful that you can utilize right away, that help you become a better leader, better person, and help your team's overall cohesiveness. So let's go ahead and jump right in. When it comes to delegating, I guess one of the biggest questions people ask is why bother with delegating? And if you're of the mindset that if I need something done, I'm just going to do it myself, or if I want something done right, I better do it, then more than likely you're under a lot of undue pressure and stress because you're taking on a lot more things that could be shared with somebody else. So that's one of the main reasons to look at delegating to other people, delegating projects to groups or committees. And what it does is it helps the team grow. And so it helps individuals, it helps you grow as a leader. And so there's many reasons to become better at delegating. So like I said, one of the main reasons to become a better delegator is to help the team grow. So let's take a quick example. Let's look at the idea of household chores, right? So as I teach my children to clean their room and vacuum or do the dishes, they are becoming more responsible. So it's helping them grow as people as they continue to grow up. And it allows me to do other things. So let's say it's a Saturday and I've got some bills to pay and I've got chores to do. If other people can do them, like my kids, that helps them to grow, gives them something to do, helps them become more responsible, and it allows me to do the things that only I can do because, at younger ages, they definitely can't do the bills, they can't do certain things. And this holds true for teams and organizations as well, whether business or nonprofit or, even sports teams. But the more that you can teach your people how to do certain things, it takes certain things off your plate and helps you continue to grow as a leader, and it helps them grow within the team and the organization. One thing to remember is, like on any team, as the individual succeeds, then the team succeeds. So if the team succeeds, then you're succeeding. And so as you help them continue to grow, continue to learn more aspects of the business, the organization, grow into more responsibilities, the more successful they are, the more successful you are as a team, and you can start to work on that cohesiveness. This is a huge benefit to everybody involved in the job, on the team, in the organization. So, as you prepare this, as you start to uh, look at what should be delegated, what are the priorities that only you can take care of, we need to kind of test the waters. So, if you're new to delegating, if you're working with a new team, or maybe you're new in your role, it's good to kind of test the waters with things that aren't quite so heavy as far as the responsibility goes. Um, the things to delegate, especially when we're talking about delegating to individuals, as you get to know them and you work on your ability to delegate, it's better to start with things that, whether or not they get done, doesn't have a huge effect on the overall outcome of our business or our service if we're in the service industry. So kind of, start small. And if it's something where you've been delegating for a while, we're going to talk about some things today where hopefully they just help you continue to grow and be more of a leader and help give more specifics in those areas that you're delegating out. One of the main things is we have to find the right people for the right job. And there's so many things that go into this, looking at skill sets of people, what's their experience, how long have they been on your team and know your expectations. And even within that, you'll still have to clarify what it is that you're looking for in any given task that gets delegated. But as we get to know what our people are capable of, what their specific goals are, what their desires are as far as growing within the team, growing within the company, and even growing just in their responsibilities, we can start to identify who's who as far as what can be given to each person. Um, this leads into explaining the entire task to them. When we delegate things, it's not just giving out tasks for task's sake. It's truly helping people grow into new roles. One way to think about it is as I delegate, I'm trying to delegate in such a way that um, I'm helping my people grow, maybe even to replace myself so that I can grow within the ladder or within the organization, or maybe even regionally. So as you explain things to the individual, let them know what part they're playing and why that task is so important in the big picture. I think of this story of a news station that had gone in to do an interview in a hospital, and they happened to be interviewing one of the custodians or the lead custodian. And the interviewer asked him, "What is it that you do here?" And of course, you expect him to say, I keep the place clean, I do this, that, and all the little things that he does specifically. And his answer was a little bit of a surprise to her. What he said was, "Well, me and the doctors, we help save lives here." And so that's the idea of giving the whole task and helping people understand, even though what I'm giving to you might be menial, might not be the most exciting thing, it's important to the big picture. And we'll talk more about the big picture in a little bit. Now, this actually goes into a more foundational aspect of leadership, and that's knowing your people or knowing your team. When it comes to knowing your team, yes, we already touched on knowing their skills, their experience, things like that. But to know your team is to build a relationship with them as individuals, not just as team members. So as you get to know your team, you're going to recognize that you have different people on your team that can fit into different parts of any given project or process. You have big picture people that love coming up with new ideas. You have process oriented people who love identifying what's the best solution for the problem we're facing now. They also love to get the right people involved. They love to really bring in extra support to make sure that we're moving forward and that the processes get done. And then you have those people who are very details and task oriented. They just want to put their nose to the ground and keep going and check things off their list. So the more that you know about your team, which person you're working with, as far as, are they big picture, are they task oriented, right? Are they process oriented? You can get to know how to utilize them, and this will help in them achieving their goals, which will ultimately help you and the team and the organization reach your overall goals. So getting to know your team is huge when it comes to delegating, because it will either help them grow or help them stay where they're at, which maybe that's what they want, but for most people, they look for some type of growth aspect. Now that we're talking about testing the waters, utilizing individuals within delegating tasks, now we can kind of go to more of a big picture and ask, is your team ready? Is your team ready to take on a task as a whole? Are they ready to work together to be able to accomplish something bigger than themselves? And so as you look at this and you ask yourself, is my team ready? Then you can start to assign projects to them. And within these projects, each person is going to have their own part of it, their own aspect, their own ability to utilize their strengths, utilize their experiences, and continue to grow. So the more that they get opportunities like this, the more they're going to grow in their cohesiveness, but also their capabilities as a whole. When you get to the end of something, as you continue to grow as a delegator and as a leader, you can start to ask some questions like, is the project complete, right? Did we get it done on time? Was it within the deadlines that were set? Has everyone finished what they were assigned to do? Even though the different pieces might not be equal, did everybody do their part, right? Maybe someone had more of a finishing part, someone had more of like the building aspect of something. Whatever the project is, did everyone contribute? And at the end, is the quality up to your standard, or does it look sloppy and finished like it was just done at the last minute? As you continue to grow and you help your team grow within the delegation process, you can start to look at these things and there's always room for improvement. But if it's something that's up to standard, great, you can move on and work on the next project. If it's not up to your standards or not up to the level of expectations of the company or the organization, we can start to look at, what was it that we could have done better? What was it that held us back? Did we run into issues that kept us from meeting our deadlines along the way? And so we can continue to grow from these personal and team experiences. So how do we do that? Let's talk about setting deadlines. Deadlines obviously are huge as far as the overall project, because if we're working for a client, that client is expecting that project to be done at a certain date and a certain time. As you break things down, every project has different stepping stones or milestones that you can hit. Are you setting those deadlines as well, as far as, by this date we should have this much done, by this date we should have this aspect done? Setting those deadlines really just starts to add into the accountability, not only for you to the team, but also from team member to team member. They can hold each other accountable because everyone knows the pace at which things should be getting accomplished. As you are looking at these deadlines, be sure to share the big picture with people. The big picture really just gives a direction, and it makes sure that everybody is A, on the same page, and B, rowing in the same direction. I mean, it's not very good if 5 people are rowing in one direction and 2 are in the opposite direction. It really makes things a little more difficult for everybody. So by sharing the big picture with everyone, it makes sure that no matter what part they enjoy, what part they're doing, it really makes sure that we are all going together and getting that momentum built up. It doesn't matter whether the people on your team are big picture oriented, are process oriented, or are task oriented. If they know the direction, we can all start going that way. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult for task oriented people to just go and want to be busy, and sometimes they're being busy in a direction that isn't necessarily conducive to the big picture. So keeping that in front of them and the entire team is very, very helpful. And again, as you grow as a delegator and as a leader, it's very good to have an open door policy, but with that, also having an open mind. Excuse me. The idea of having an open door policy within a project is letting your team know that they can come to you if they have questions. They can come to you if they have concerns, or if they just want to bounce ideas off of you and see if it does fit into that big picture we just talked about. Some things to consider and keep in mind when you have an open door policy is that when a team member comes into your office with a new idea, don't shut it down right away. Consider it. Look at the different sides of it. Maybe see something that they don't see, or get on the same page with them. Listen to what your team member is saying and really think about it. Sometimes team members come to us with great ideas that get shut down right away because we already have in our mind the way we want things to be done. Maybe they do it in a different way, but the outcome looks just as good, if not better, than what we imagined or what we envisioned. So take those things into consideration. Allow others to build their own path by allowing them to have a voice in the process. The thing about good leaders is they surround themselves with people who complement what they can do. The thing about great leaders is they surround themselves with people who are better than they are, and especially in the areas of their weaknesses. So allow that those strengths and those experiences and those skills of your team to feed into the processes that you continue to build. And finally, recognize strategies that are different from yours might be brilliant ideas. A lot of times when we delegate something on the individual level, we are looking for someone who can do it, 80 to 90% as good as we can, and they can grow into that. And here's the thing, if they are bright and they have skills and they're stronger in a specific area, eventually they're going to be doing it better than you can, which is a good thing because that makes the team even more productive. And so be aware of these things and make sure that you're allowing that space for them to grow and for them to share ideas with you as well, especially as a leader. When you're speaking of success of the team and success of the project, make sure you share your picture of this. So we've talked about the big picture of what we need to accomplish. Now we can start to share the picture of what does it mean to be successful in this project. So it's one thing to get it accomplished. It's another thing to say, this is exactly what I was thinking of, or in a lot of cases, this is exactly what our client was looking for. And maybe if we can go above and beyond what they were looking for and cover more of their issues that they're facing, then we look even stronger as a team because we saw things before they even became an issue for the client. So share your picture, and this will help bring clarity to the whole process. It's okay to be uncertain about things. Maybe the client themselves wasn't clear about what they wanted from the project. Maybe there is some uncertainty about what we actually need, as we work on this project. But the thing is, as long as we can be clear about our expectations on the daily, then that will give the team members something more to go off of. It gives them more of a direction, more um, ideas that they can really drive into. Instead of being so broad, it becomes very specific. So along the pathway, we've talked about sharing the big idea, knowing your team, really starting to build in and give clarity to what you're doing. And we've already set those great deadlines. Now let's talk about having a little more accountability for the team itself. So we can add in check-ins to the process. Now, some people think of check-ins as maybe being overbearing or wanting to know too much, or the boss is just trying to dictate everything. If we do this right, the check-ins can be just very powerful in making sure that we're pacing correctly. Are we hitting our milestones to make sure that we hit our overall deadline? Are each of the team members fulfilling their responsibilities within the project itself? If these things are all true in the check-ins, as a leader and as the delegator, all you're really doing is keeping a pulse on it and making sure that it's moving forward. Because in reality, you could have more than one project going at any given time, and if you have the pulse on those things, you don't have to be super involved with them if you have a team set up to be successful. And again, the accountability is not just from you to the team, it's from team member to team member. So as check-ins happen, they can happen even from team member to team member saying, you know what, I need this from you, or we should be at this point. And so they can problem solve along the way as well. So check-ins are very powerful in helping people and teams to continue to pace the right way to make sure that we're either ahead of schedule or at least on schedule to hit that deadline for the overall project. And at the end of the day, remember, you're still in charge. So if there's something you see that isn't quite right, or there's some unfinished business going on, or there's an error in what we've done so far, as long as we're within the process, you have that authority to step in and help out. Not from the standpoint of just telling people, oh, you're wrong in this, but more from the standpoint of helping them learn or helping them grow as they go through the process themselves. If it looks like maybe a team member's lost focus, you can step in and kind of evaluate where they're at. And since you've built relationship with them, you can see if it's an outside factor that's distracting them from getting the job done. And at the end of the day, ultimately, you are in charge, and it's still your responsibility to get this project done. So it's a good thing to be able to have that closeness to the team where you can step in, help out when possible, and then step back out and let them do their thing. This can be very, very powerful, and it can make sure that everybody's staying on track to everything that the project is needing. As you continue to do this, you can also share your experiences. Now that you're in a leadership position, what are some times where you can think back to where you were on a project, you were part of a team, and what was it that your leader slash delegator did well to help your team be successful, to help you be successful within that project? And what are some things that maybe you wish would have been done differently? What are some things that you want to make sure that you do that maybe they didn't do? And as we go through today, what are some things that you would like to add in or grow in to become a better delegator? So share your experience with your team and get feedback. Be open to hearing from them what they need and what would be beneficial for them to continue to grow and to continue to be successful, even within a current project. One thing that every project needs and every team needs are measures. We need a scoreboard, really. It's something that we can look at and say, where are we at right now compared to where we need to be? This goes back to the check-ins, but the measures are, what are we actually putting numbers to, right? Is it amount of time? Is it income? Is it any number of things, right? How many people would this project affect? How many people can utilize this project? Maybe you're doing some software development. But as we're going along, we definitely need to make sure there are measures that we can all look at and know what the milestones are for those measures. Every team member should know precisely what each other team members' measures are, so that again we can hold each other accountable, and so that we can continue to move forward on the project itself. Now, the measures will help us determine whether or not the completion of the project was successful. And so as we complete the project, this is one thing a lot of especially task-oriented leaders can fall short in, is when the process gets completed and the project gets completed and everyone's done their part and we determine that yes, this was a successful completion, we need to celebrate that and we need to express our appreciation to each of the team members and to the team for coming together and making this thing happen. So celebrate with your teams when you have a completion. It could be a small celebration, it could be a big celebration, depending on whatever the project was, how big it was for the company, and things like that. But make sure that we take time to slow down, be grateful for what each team member brought, identify something that they brought that helped the team be successful, and bring it all together. How the team like overcame obstacles or stresses or distractions, and they were still able to make the thing happen on time, as far as completing the entire task. This will help buy your team into future projects and will also encourage them as they grow and give them more confidence, because now they see what they're capable of and they see how they grew even within each individual project. So they are going to want to be challenged in the future as well. And with the appreciation, embrace the individuality that comes with your team. No matter how big your team is or how tight knit it might be because it's smaller, understand that every person brings a certain perspective and certain strengths and certain skills to any project that you have. And so embrace those things. Not everyone's going to look at something the way that you do. They aren't going to approach it the same way that you do. So look at those things and see how their perspective can open up your mind to new ways of doing things. Look at how maybe somebody did something and you never would have thought of that, but the way they did it was 10 times faster than what you would have done. Embrace those things and identify those things so that people can stand on them and continue to bring those aspects to the team, whether that's on the daily or on other projects. So as we start to kind of wrap up our time together, here's a few tips for success when it comes to delegating. And if you can start to apply these, maybe start with one or two of them and put them all together eventually, it will really help you start to grow as a delegator within your company, within your organization, and just with teams in general. So the first thing is decide what you need to delegate. This goes back to deciding what's important versus what's urgent and what's a top priority versus what's a lower priority on your specific schedule. If you can identify things that can be done 50 to 80% as good as you would do it and somebody else is capable, those are things that should be delegated off. The things that should stay on your plate as a leader should be things that only you can do, like we talked about with the family, right? The bills are only something mom or dad should do when kids are little. And so they can start to do things like vacuuming and cleaning and doing the dishes. So identify on your daily task list what things can be delegated and get them off your plate. Pick the right people for the task. This goes back to building that relationship, right? We're moving from just knowing who the person is by their resume to really getting to know them. Not only what are their skills and experiences, but what are their goals? What are the things that make them come alive, right? What are the things that fill their bucket versus what are the things that drain their bucket? So just because somebody's really good at something, skills wise, doesn't mean that their bucket gets filled by doing that thing all the time. Can they be delegated to? Of course, but that doesn't mean that we want to delegate that particular task to that person every single time. So pick the right people, really get to know your team on a personal level, and that will help promote and push forward the entire team cohesively. The third thing is communicate clearly. This can mean being more concise. This can mean making sure that the right people have the right information. But when it comes to communication, as you learn to be more clear on what your expectations are, this also moves from simply sharing information to connecting with your people and knowing where they're at. So if I know what my people want, what their goals are, where they want to grow more, then this makes it a lot easier to communicate with them because I know what to communicate, how to communicate it, and things are not lost in the translation, if you will. Check in without being overbearing. Our check-ins simply bring the accountability. The overbearing part would be if you were a micromanager and you were checking in every single day, maybe every single hour, and making sure that people were pushing forward. If you are consistent in your check-ins and you have an idea of where everybody's at, where the project is at, and you have just that pulse of things, then you can check in, keep them accountable, but also allow them autonomy to be creative in moving forward. And it takes pressure off of you because you aren't constantly worrying about, well, where's this at and where's that at? You know because of the check-ins. And finally, give credit where credit is due. When you do come to completion and you're identifying some things that really stood out in this particular project, maybe somebody went above and beyond, maybe um, somebody surprised you with an idea they had, or you were shocked by the way that the team came together to overcome some type of obstacle. Give credit to those things, identify those things, and again, share some way. It could be verbal, could be in a note, could be in an email. Share your appreciation for the value that each person brings to the team, and share your appreciation and your gratitude for the way the team works together as a whole. And with those 5 things said, what I'd like you to do is chime in. Tell me in the comments some things that you've seen other people do that are very, very powerful when it comes to delegating either individual tasks or team projects within your organization or other organizations that you've been with or that you've seen. What are some things that you've personally been a part of that was a really good thing that helped delegate, help the team get to the deadline and be very successful in the completion of a project? And on the other side, share with us what are some things that maybe weren't the greatest. What are some things that you're like, definitely not something I would do as a leader and a delegator, but I learned from that and I learned that I should do something else. And finally, as you chime in, what I'd like to hear from you is what is something from today that you're going to apply to become a better delegator? As you become stronger in your ability to delegate, the clarity with which you bring, the check-ins, the accountability, helping the team be accountable to one another, you also grow because you're becoming a stronger leader. They're becoming stronger because they're growing in their skill sets and maybe are able to grow into leadership as well. And so what things are you going to really focus on? Maybe it's 1 or 2 things from what we just talked about. Maybe something from the beginning. I'd love to hear from you. As always, I appreciate you taking some time this morning to sit in with me, hear what I have to say about delegation, becoming a stronger leader. And I would love to hear from you. So if you want to reach out, talk about delegation, maybe how you could do something better, maybe you had an experience where things didn't go great and we can talk through that, email me. I'm more than happy to set up a consultation and discuss what you went through and maybe discuss what it looks like to work with a coach like myself as far as leadership training. I really think of it as my former profession of personal training. I think of me as a coach as a personal trainer for the organizational health that you're working in. And so by identifying the right people and working with those leaders, that health starts to trickle down into everybody and the whole team starts to grow. So with that, I just want to say that's a wrap, and I appreciate you once again. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. See you next month.